Jin, you said you were gonna upload a top 5 unfunded classes video like 5 weeks ago, you dirty liar. Where's the video? Alright. This is 2018. Procrastination is the meta. Leave me alone. But hey guys, welcome to the long-awaited updated top 5 unfunded classes video. It's been well over a year since I made one and there's been a ton of balancing changes plus the addition of 3 new classes into the game since then. KMS received the Black Mage update, which is adding a third wave of 5th drop skills to the game. And I'll be including a minor description of them in the classes that I pick. And I also would like to say thank you ahead of time to Steve and his viewers, as well as every other YouTuber whom I borrowed their footage for this video. Be sure to subscribe to their channels and check out the content they have. They all have a lot of decent content, so I recommend you guys go check them out. This is also going to be probably the biggest top 5 video yet, so that's my excuse for why it took so long. And it's totally not because I was putting it off until my channel got monetized. No, why would I ever do something like that? Do I look like the type of guy who would do something so self-servingly heinous? Yes! The way I'll be grading these classes will follow the same protocol as the other top 5 videos I've made in the past. Damage, wave clear, single target DPS, defense, mobility, utility, difficulty, funding curve. I'm sure these categories are familiar to you by now. I'll be covering the 5 best classes in the game that fit unfunded players, a little bit of background information in case you guys don't know. An unfunded or free-to-play player is someone who plays MapleStory with either limited wherewithal and or a desire to not invest any capital resources into the game, meaning they don't have as liberal access to incredibly strong gear and tend to progress through MapleStory at a significantly slower pace than funded players. Unfunded players are typically players who do not have as powerful equipment as funded players, who are usually well equipped and connected. Unfunded and funded don't necessarily mean how much money a person has. You can very well have lots of resources in real life but choose not to spend anything in-game. Conversely, you can spend 0 money on the game and become a top-level player. This guide is meant to help you pick a suitable class to help you progress through the game in as pleasant of a fashion as possible. In other words, your goal as an unfunded player is to pick a class that performs well at all stages of the game, classes that are suitable and enjoyable for those who prefer not to be placed in an abusive relationship counseling session with their wallet. Now that I got that explanation out of the way, let's get into the honorable mentions of this list. Demon Avenger and Demon Slayer compete well against one another, and neither class is inherently better than the other, but for overall purposes, Demon Slayer tends to overpower Demon Avengers since the latter is mostly damage oriented and are unorthodox to gear up because of their uncommon stat requirement of HP instead of the usual strength. Regardless, they still pack a huge punch since HP is really easy to get early on. Later on it might become a little bit difficult since most gear don't come with high amounts of base HP. I would still argue they're very serviceable for newer players because of their high base damage and due to the fact that they're self-sustainable. Nightlord has always been the reigning king when it came to thieves, but that was before Kadena came out. Kadenas actually have the second highest damage output in the game, second only to heroes. They sport a huge amount of combo damage and are actually quite fun to play because of it. And while they may be difficult to learn at first with the high skill ceiling, proper control and mastery of the class will be very rewarding. The biggest downside is that Kadenas are an extremely frail class, as are most thieves, but with the abundance of restoratives like power elixirs, I do believe that can be overlooked. Fire Poison Mages are extreme brutes in terms of their raw damage output, though a lot of players tend to favor Ice Lightning Mage because fire poisons are rather slow and favor bursts instead of consistent damage, which depending on circumstances may or may not be favorable. But in terms of complete usability, they're still viable and outshine many classes when it comes to bossing, as their attacks have exponential scaling due to their passive skills. I used to play Fire Poison Mage myself and I was able to do over 100 times my range's damage with their skills, which is pretty incredible. Last one is Blaster. Blasters are another combo-based class with power and speed rivaling Kadena. They don't have as high damage as Kadena, but that is traded in for faster speed, which evens out. These guys are also huge tanks and can take a lot of punishment before tapping out. Not many players get used to Blaster's combo mechanics, and since they tend to be so demanding to play in terms of your fingers, you don't see many around. But they are still very powerful and are at least worth giving a shot. I still can't fathom why they're a warrior class instead of a pirate though, and even more, why is an Arc a pirate and not a warrior? It just seems out of place. Before we get into the main part of the video, just remember that your enjoyment of the class takes priority over its performance. The class you main is the class you're gonna have to stick to for months or even years if you really want to get it high up there. So think of it like getting a boyfriend or girlfriend. Do you see yourself spending hours and hours a day with that class or not? If you're not feeling it, then there's your answer. Don't let the sexy damage numbers or the DPS chart be the reason you want to play the class. It's all about the personality and the chemistry of the class. What connects well with you? If that just so happens to be one of the 5 classes, then, well, a fortunate surprise. But remember that what you find fun is more important, otherwise everyone would just be playing hero. Now let's get into the actual 5. These classes are not listed in any particular order, so there isn't a 1st or 5th place. I'll just cover them one at a time. Heroes. You guys were the bottom of the barrel in the game back when a damage cap existed because one thing you excelled in just so happened to be incredibly restrictive. Not anymore though. After over 8 years of heroes being one of the weakest classes in the game in terms of DPS, their rankings literally dialed up to 11. And I'm not exaggerating that either. If we were to compare heroes to any other class in the game based on just pure damage, these guys are so far ahead you can't even begin to contend. Heroes are the definition of power in MapleStory. They have average wave clear, and in contrast to the other warrior classes, they're pretty squishy, but certainly better than non-warrior classes. They also don't have the greatest mobility, as their flash jump only happens once and has average distance. Although with the addition of rope lift as a 5th job skill, that's not too bad. They're not the most supportive warrior either, though they do come with rage and magic crash, the former being a decent attack buff that increases your party's attack with a slight counterattack component added to you, and that alone doesn't amount to too much, and magic crash is included in both paladins and dark knights as well. So why is the hero so good when everything about them besides damage is average at best? Well, that's just it. They just do way too much damage. So high in fact that the other mediocre attributes can be overlooked. Heroes are the type of guy in another game who can be played without any effort and still do like 50 million damage. Like Darius. Unfortunately, that only applies to single targets. Heroes do not have the best mobbing in the game, certainly worse than his counterparts Paladin and Dark Knight. But like I said, they are the epitome of strength. The 3 active 5th job skills are Burning Soul Blade, which creates a living sword that acts almost like a shadow partner for heroes. It can either follow you or be set in place and attacks whenever you attack, dealing its own raging blow, effectively doubling your DPS if both your attack and its attack would hit the same target. World Reaver, that's a pretty cool last name by the way, it breaks your screen. I'm not kidding, it actually breaks your screen, which is pretty cool but at the same time kind of annoying. It's a low cooldown ultimate ability that consumes your own combo orbs to do damage, but afterwards it refunds you the final damage you lost to actually use the skill, meaning you can get even more final damage than before when you recharge your orbs. The skill is another DPS buff on top of its actual active. Last skill is Combo Instinct. The way this skill works is that your attacks have so much power that they actually slash through space itself, creating unstable areas which deal damage to monsters around the area. This skill may as well be another shadow partner, so combine that with your Burning Soul Blade and you get so much extra DPS that you hit almost as fast as a Thief or Bowman, and guess what, it boosts your damage even further. Heroes are basically the most powerful class in the game right now if we were to go by brute force alone, and while they don't have many other benefits, if you're looking to do a bunch of DPS, you can't find a better class than this guy. Besides maybe Dual Blade. Luminous. I seldom cannot think of any mage that's really equal or better in terms of overall performance. Luminous is just good all across the board, and while Nexon did nerf them considerably a long time ago, they also buffed them in other departments. Luminous has equal parts damage and wave clear, at one point being the best mobber in the game. While this is no longer the case due to Reflection's cast range nerf and also the loss of the ability to remain in light mode permanently, they're still a force to be reckoned with. Lumi's biggest appeal is that they're a very fun class to play with very creative skills, as are most mages. They have a unique mechanic of micromanaging your light and dark form as well as explosive skills with high damage ratios. They did receive a teleport range nerf because they did have the highest teleport range in the game, but fortunately Nexon remedied this a little by granting you the ability to teleport in mid-air while in equilibrium, which is where all of your damage comes from anyway. They sport a nice cast of utilities such as Binding Pillar and Ray of Redemption. Classes with healing abilities tend to be very good for endgame bossing since most bosses have potion cooldowns, and Luminous is a party-wide heal with a low cooldown. The only time Luminous really does a lot is if they're in equilibrium or light mode. Dark mode is kinda slow because your main DPS skill is Apocalypse. While a very cool looking ability, it's got short range and it's a pretty slow attack. Lumies and GMS used to be able to remain in light mode as long as they wanted to because they could force equilibrium twice to reset their light mode, but now that's not so much the case because you have to balance yourself between light and darkness. All the while you have to try to reach the equilibrium point as best as you can. That kinda reminds me of that one SpongeBob episode. Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. Lumi's 3 5th job skills are Gate of Light, Aether's Conduit, and Baptism of Light and Darkness. Gate of Light is frankly a rather underwhelming ability. It can only be used in equilibrium and summons a giant door that occasionally deals damage to nearby enemies. This is purely meant to be wave clear and not really much DPS for a boss. Aether's Conduit is a great skill though. It summons an entity that attacks with light and dark projectiles depending on which mode you're in. If you're in light mode, it shoots horizontally, dark mode shoots vertically, and in equilibrium it shoots in all cardinal directions. This skill is great for extra DPS and wave clear too. While it has a moderately long cooldown, I find this skill to be one of my more favorite ones. Lastly, we have Baptism of Light and Darkness, which summons light and dark swords that attack a single enemy. Additionally, if Ender hits a target, you get 1 ceremonial sword stack. At 12 stacks, the cooldown of the skill instantly resets, meaning this is also a skill to be used during equilibrium. This, along with Aether's Conduit plus Ender, actually makes Luminous's bossing pretty damn strong, and it makes him a contender for one of the best burst classes in the game. I would say if you're looking for more consistency in a playstyle similar to Luminous, Ice Lightning Mage is better, but I like Lumies because of their cool skills and fun playstyle, so personally I have no objections on this class. Definitely an S tier for both unfunded and funded players alike. But why is their teleport range so bad? I understand it was so long, but you just made it not even a couple pixels worth of distance. Third on the list is Demon Slayer. Since I said Demon Slayers are better than Demon Avengers in the honorable mentions, that means that Demon Slayers take the top 5 while Avengers get benched. I know they were in the last top 5, but screw it, Demon Slayers are better now. Demon Slayers have a lot of large skills, and arguably they have one of the best fit job skills in the game, which I'll get to in a bit. What I think attributes the most to Demon Slayer's success is their wide variety of skills, along with the fact that their main damaging skills just so happen to be their main wave clear skills. They used to be the best class in the game when it came to wave clear back when Demon Cry was spammable. Now it mostly serves as an active debuff. The main mobbing skill has now become Infernal Concussion, which still is a very powerful skill and it covers a lot of range. I think a huge selling point about Demon Slayers is that they do not need critical hit rate at all because of their main DPS skills having 100% crit rate. In fact, even in Infernal Concussion, their main mobbing ability happens to have 100% crit rate as well. They also have great mobility too, with Dark Thrust being a conventional dash, Chaos Lock blinking you to an enemy point blank no matter where they are on the screen, a vertical jump, and a glide. They do have a flash jump, but it's really short, impractical at times, and it's not really worth using. Like their sister class, Demon Slayers are fully self-sufficient, so they do not need potions or curatives to an extent, and they have a lot of utility in their kit such as Binding Darkness, Ravenous Flock, Vortex of Doom, and Demon Cry. Lots of skills you can use to help you out in any situation. These guys are very boss friendly too. Demon Slayers come with a lot of innate boss damage and ignore defense, making them serviceable to unfunded players who can't get much potential on their gear. The 3 skills they have are Demon Awakening, Jormungand the Spirit of Rage, and Orthrus. Demon Awakening empowers your Demon Lash to gain huge range and bonus damage, adding boss damage and ignore defense of its own, plus bonus critical hit rate. Additionally, every 8 seconds it triggers Cerberus Chomp passively, and you can even use Chaos Lock while in the middle of attacking. This is in my opinion one of the best fit job skills in the game. There are seldom other fit job skills with as much benefit as Demon Awakening, and if you combine that with Blue Blood doubling the number of attacks you do, it's a hella steroid. Jormungand is on the flip side, somewhat meh, but it's a very cool skill though. It summons this giant snake spear that pulsates damage similar to Lumi's Gate of Light, only attacks more times in a shorter duration. It's mostly meant for mobbing and chip damage, but a decent skill. I actually prefer this over Gate of Light. The new one, Orthrus, summons 2 little spirits that follow you around and occasionally transform into large demons that attack nearby enemies, which ignores some defense and, what do you know, they always critically strike. This skill's usefulness is quite good as it serves as both a DPS enhancer and extra wave clear depending on the situation. You can really tell how much coverage these guys provide in the clip. To my knowledge, the twins have their separate attack delays, which means they attack individually instead of together. One of the demons attacks more often but deals less damage, while the other attacks less often but hits harder. They tend to be very flashy while kicking some serious ass. If only they had a normal flash jump like other classes though, or increased the glide speed or something, then I would consider them one of the best classes in the game. I think we haven't seen Evan in the past couple of top 5 videos because they've been somewhat low-key after their rework in 2016 with some succeeding nerfs, but I would still consider them one of the best unfunded classes in the game. The main gimmick to this class is that you have to chain your skills with Mir, who is Evan's dragon companion, and depending on how well you chain your skills together you can do either a lot of damage or do nothing at all. They have equal parts wave clear and damage, though the single target may not be the greatest. That's not to say they're not good at bossing, mind you, they're still quite strong, just not nearly as effective in a single target scenario. So while they're low in the DPS chart, why do I suggest they're a good class? Well, first off, the DPS chart shouldn't be regarded as dogma for class standards. Some classes in the DPS chart, with the exception of heroes, require a huge amount of funding to reach those numbers, while classes like Evan kinda don't. Inside Evan's repertoire, there are a lot of passive skills that can give you huge benefits, like Magic Link, Spell Mastery, Critical Magic, Magical Resistance, Magic Amplification, Dragon's Potential, Onyx Will, Dragon Fury, High Dragon Potential, Magic Mastery. You have so many skills that give you passive buffs in the form of boss damage, magic attack, final damage, critical rate, ignore defense, almost everything. Evans have very respectable base damage and tremendously good bursts in their regular kit and their fit job skills. Mir also tends to have a shoop de whoop complex. I'm a fire in my laser! Most of Mir's abilities are really flashy and really potent, and they have a good mix of horizontal and vertical wave clear. Their fit job skills are Elemental Barrage, Dragon Slam, Worm King's Breath, and the new Zodiac Ray. Elemental Barrage deals 4 different elemental magic attacks in quick succession, dealing a large amount of damage and always critically striking. This attack then gives you a final damage buff up to 20% for a short period of time. It's got considerable AoE coverage and can be used for both wave clear and bossing. Dragon Slam is Mir's exclusive skill, which causes Mir to body slam an area and deal huge amounts of damage to nearby enemies. Fuse these 2 skills together and you get Worm King's Breath, which is a massive dragon laser which annihilates an entire screen in a very colorful fashion. All of Evan's fit job skills are extensions of their current mechanic of chaining your skills with Mir's abilities to make fusion skills for more powerful effects. The new fit job skill Zodiac Ray installs a magic circle that charges up with magic, and upon full completion of its charge, dishes out a huge amount of true damage to enemies in the form of, guess what, another laser. You think you couldn't get enough rainbowy lasers? Nope, you have a third one, look at that. If you couldn't tell already, Evans are really good at blowing up the entire screen. In all my years of playing MapleStory, I never found a class as well rounded and balanced since Dark Knight after the post-red patch. I would consider Dark Knight to be the most balanced class in the game. They have strong damage, respectable wave clear, their single target DPS is consistent, they're tanky as shit. Mobility isn't the greatest, but with Rope Lift you can fix that. They have great self-sustaining utility, they're super easy to play, and they benefit a lot from equipment. Dark Knights are for all intents and purposes slightly weaker but far more well-rounded versions of heroes. They don't hurt nearly as hard as heroes do, but they tend to be much more reliable. I would say their greatest aspect is that they're Batman. I would say their greatest aspect is their insane bulk. Dark Knights are very hard to kill, maybe not as much as Paladins, but still a very resilient class. Hyper Body and Iron will make them incessantly tanky, and they also have a passive revive skill called Final Pact, which so happens to increase your damage potential. Simply put, intentionally dying can actually work to your benefit, because when you unlock Final Pact's hyper skill you get even more final damage. Like heroes, Dark Knights can reach high amounts of final damage with little effort at all. At base, with only Cross Surge and passives you can reach well over 120% final damage, which is a bit lower than heroes but way higher than the other classes. And for some reason, Dark Knights get so much critical damage. A good 3 of their skills give critical hit rate and critical damage. Dark Knights have somewhat weaker base ratios compared to other classes to balance out the incredible final damage bonuses they get, which is why you may not see as high damage with a certain amount of range on a Dark Knight as you would another class. But like I said before, they're a very balanced class. Not too strong, not too weak, and overall pretty good. The fit job skills are Spear of Darkness, Beholder Impact, and Pierce Cyclone, all relatively simple abilities. Spear of Darkness hurls a gigantic pike as a projectile in your direction of your choosing. The spear's damage is based on ticks or frames and is treated as hitbox impact. Despite it being a ranged attack, it's actually better to cast it point blank because the longer the spear is touching an enemy, the more damage it does, up to I think it was 84 hits or 12 frames of 7 attacks each. Pretty strong skill and can be great for both wave clear and burst damage. Beholder Impact is similar to Jormungand and Gate of Light, in which it summons a giant eye-looking thingamadoohickey that attacks enemies for a short period of time. This skill's main intent is not really its wave clear nor the damage, but rather that every attack of this skill reduces the cooldown of Sacrifice, which lets you spam Gungnir's Descent without any cooldown. It does less damage than the former 2 classes skills though. Last one is Pierce Cyclone. You Dark Knights, you're basically copying Dual Blade's Blade Tempest. Pierce Cyclone is a huge mobbing tool that covers impressive range horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. Dark Knights have already impressive single target DPS, so these fit job skills serve to improve their somewhat lackluster wave clear. If you were to ask me what a solid warrior class to play for unfunded players, I would pretty much recommend you play Dark Knights because they've always been the middle ground class in the game. In fact, since the red update, they've always been right smack in the middle of the DPS chart almost every patch. A very well-rounded class to pick up. You guys probably noticed by now that most, if not all, of the good unfunded classes are either warriors and mages, and unfortunately that is kind of the case. Thieves and archers are attack speed based, while pirates are kind of, well, they're pirates. A lot of warriors and mages favor power over speed, which naturally would make them the best for unfunded players. Remember what I said before though, even if you're a free-to-play player and you can't or don't want to spend any money in this game, that doesn't mean you can't play them. But if you really want to benefit from the class's base repertoire of skills and stats, warrior and mage is pretty much all you can go with. Thieves and archers are among the hardest class branches to fund because of how low their ratios are in favor of the intense frequency in which they attack. Having said all that though, in the end, choose whatever class you want to play. This guide is mostly meant to tell you what's currently good for lower level players right now, and I hope I delivered it nicely. I want to say thank you for making it this far, and courtesies to everyone whom I borrowed footage from. Links to all sources will be in the description below, as well as more information for each class, skill builds, guides, and what have you. I also will include channels of some well-known YouTubers who main those classes in case you want to see some more gameplay. I'm going to take this time also to say thank you to my new patrons who have recently donated to my Patreon. In case you aren't aware, I opened a Patreon a few days ago as a means of helping out players who are adamant about getting funded and better at the game, and those who also want to support my channel. If you want to check out what I have to offer, the link will be on the screen right now, as well as the description. I'm sure it'll be worth your time. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Twitch as well. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like. It really helps my channel out. Subscribe for more content in the future if you wish. And let me know in the comments below what your main is and what is your reasons for maining the class. We are already almost 4,000 subscribers in such a short amount of time, and I'm so thankful for the wonderful reception I've been getting so far. But for now, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.